Hello Assassins, Gargudon here, and welcome to episode 10 of the Assassin's Creed podcast, The Memory Corridor. First of all, I know it has been awfully long since the last episode of this podcast, as in nearly an entire year. There are many reasons for that, but they are too boring for me to explain them all, so let's just skip them. Anyway, as you've probably noticed, for the first time an episode isn't uploaded on my own channel, but on the channel of the ones who came before. All episodes of this podcast will be uploaded on here from now on, as part of a collaboration project with the channel. This podcast is still hosted by me though, and will feature guests as usual. So, with all explanations and stuff out of the way, let's discuss some Assassin's Creed. So today I'm going to be discussing the rumors about the Assassin's Creed Ragnarok / Kingdom game, which have been around on the web for some time now. And joining me, I have Mr. Colin Blackett. Say hi.
Hi guys, good to be back.
Absolutely, glad to have you. So without further ado, let's kick this off. So, my first question for you is, what do you think about the different rumors about the supposedly leaked Assassin's Creed Ragnarok / Kingdom game? And if true, what would you like to see this game consist of?
So I personally think it's a perfect direction for the franchise to go in. I think Viking's extremely interesting, and that could be where the future of the franchise is. So I would absolutely love to see AC tackle something along the lines of Vikings, the TV show, because I'm a big fan of that. And I think if they did go in that direction, it could even revitalize the franchise, because it's going down like an RPG road that isn't really including assassins. But if we were to go down this Viking road, obviously it's set a lot further away from like Odyssey and this kind of ancient game, so it'd be a lot more recent than that, so we'd have an established. And I just think if AC was to do that, it could bring a lot of old fans back to the franchise who feel like AC's gone in a strange direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean, because I personally really can relate to the whole that it's becoming really RPG-ish, because as we're speaking, I actually still have to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I am considering it though, but you know, from what I've heard and from what I know about Assassin's Creed Origins, which I have played, I know what you mean about this whole RPG direction, and you know that it's not as assassin as the old game used to be, because that's the thing I keep saying about Origins, is that it's definitely a great game, I just don't know how great an Assassin's Creed game it is. So definitely know what you mean, that like setting this game around, let's see, 800, 900 after Christ, you know, could definitely be great, because then the Assassin-Templar conflict has been going on for, yeah, at least a few hundred years, and then you take some of the elements from, like, such as wildlife and map size from, like, Origins and Odyssey, and then some of the more, like, gameplay elements from, like, some of the older games. I think you can really blend those two together and really create a really great game. So, you know, I'm personally really stoked about this whole Viking idea as well. Both in terms of, like, there's a lot of story potential and map potential as well. We could explore a part of the world, you know, where we've never really been before. What would you say, like, for a map? Where would you like to set it to see it then?
I think Scandinavia, where you're actually from, aren't you, mate? So I think
I
that'd
am
be
as
very
well.
interesting.
So there would be a bit of pride in it for me as well. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking maybe make it. Let's just say let's make it a big map, and then you could have some of Scandinavia, maybe some of Denmark and Norway, and then you could have some of Iceland and maybe some of the like colonies that the Vikings had in the UK and Ireland, for example.
I think, mate, if it was anything like that, I think that'd be absolutely perfect, to be honest, because that'd be such a range of environments right there.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying you should create the entirety of those things, but just like some of those coastal cities and maybe some of the larger establishments and stuff. That could be really, really fun. Absolutely good.
That sounds great.
Absolutely. As I said, in terms of gameplay, like, would you like to kind of see a Black Flag vibe to it, if you know what I mean? I'm not saying you should make it like a direct, like, new-gen version of Black Flag, but some gameplay elements, you know, for example, maybe you have your own Viking ship, and then you can, you know, plunder other establishments around the area, and, you know, make your ship stronger and your crew stronger.
Yeah, I think the naval aspects have sort of been stripped apart in a way in the last two games. So in Origins, it was pretty basic. Odyssey, again, it was quite basic. So I think it would be nice to go to a more established naval feel. So obviously in the Viking times, like in the show, they had like the little longboats and everything, but then they had like the big ships and everything they were competing with. So even there, you've got like a range of ships you can have, the weapons you'd use, and just that sort of being able to navigate again properly, because yeah, we've had naval, but it hasn't really been the same kind of naval that we had in AC4, for example, which was like a core pillar of the game, but it was sort of like optional in the other two, just because I felt like you fast traveled a lot in them two games.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. Because the thing in Black Flag was also, yeah, you needed to plunder ships sometimes just to survive. You know, upgrade your ship or some cargo you could sell for money. So if you could kind of try and implement that into this game as well, that would be great. But I'm thinking they don't want to just take that and just put it into this new game. They kind of want to add something new to it. I'm thinking, could that be maybe each crew member of your ship is unique? And then, you know, you can maybe like buy different sets of armor for each member of the crew. So like, you know, each part of the crew is really, you know, is fatal to your success of, for example, plundering another ship, where in Black Flag, you know, it was just you could recruit anybody at a tavern and they were pretty expendable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Kind of like recruiting assassins in Brotherhood, I guess. Could that work?
I actually really like that idea, you know, like you just said, where all the characters are like individuals and you're not just recruiting like one-off randomers in the pub. So Odyssey's actually tried to do that in a way where main story characters can be added to your crew.
Yeah, I saw about that. You can have like, even though it makes no sense whatsoever, you can add like Bayek and Evie Fry and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, maybe you start off with a small crew of like 10 people and you can upgrade it to like 20, 30 people. And then, you know, you're responsible for, you know, each of them having a good weapon and different sets of armor. And so, you know, and all depending on how skilled your crew is, not depending on the size of it, you know, that is, that plays a big role in you succeeding in plundering different towns and stuff. That could work. So yeah, you know, the whole naval aspect would be like they have to add that in some way for a Viking game.
Yeah, and that sort of fits in with the RPG theme as well, because I play a lot of Skyrim. Yeah. And on that, I actually like customize the side characters. So you've got like a follower, and you can like edit their outfit, you can edit their weapons and everything. And if they were to bring that into Assassin's Creed, you could really modify your crew and your team. The people around you would have like the sort of personality and weapons, whatever you need to be the play style that you're going for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of like what the game should consist of. What would you, just theoretically speaking, would you like to see the story consist of? Like, what would be the like the main core of it? Do you have any like ideas there?
I do actually. I've been considering a Viking game for a while now, and I've been thinking about the Assassin's Creed franchise, like what makes it unique in terms of story, because we've had a lot of the sort of your dad is your enemy sort of vibe going on. But in this, I was wondering if they would finally tackle it. My idea was, if there was a character who's like a warrior and somehow gets injured in a way that gives him memory loss. So imagine having like a character with amnesia, and then the assassins can swoop in and be like, oh, all this happened because of the Templar conflict and everything. Like, let's say he had a backstory of like his wife was killed, for example, by, I don't know, like thieves in the local area. Then the assassins could say, oh no, this is down to the conflict. And then slowly, by like joining the Brotherhood, he could unlock the secrets of his past. So it'd be sort of like you could unlock memories that he once had by them coming back one by one. Like, I don't know if you know anything about amnesia, but it doesn't always come back at once. It does come back like one memory at a time. Yeah. So I thought that'd be quite an interesting like premise for the game. Imagine it.
Absolutely. I'm actually not gonna lie. I had this a similar idea once, not necessarily about Vikings, but kind of maybe like two assassins, and one like suffers from amnesia, and then all of a sudden he's fighting with the Templars, and then like they meet again. So I want to say I had like a similar kind of similar idea once. And I'm gonna say I definitely like this. So you're saying it could kind of be maybe a Viking warrior who's like he gets injured in battle, and he was fighting for the Templars, and then like the assassins like they take advantage of his amnesia, you could say.
I think that would be great, because that's so unlike any other games that we've had, really, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
Sort of the closest would be like the Shay Cormac being assassin and taken on by the Templars, but obviously he did have his fall and his knock to his head, but he didn't like lose his memories as such. But this would be like full on. He's lost his allegiance, and now he will fight for them.
Absolutely. I mean, Shay, he did it of completely free will. He couldn't, stand for what the assassins were doing anymore. After causing all that death in Portugal. So I'm definitely gonna say it could work, what you're saying here. I was thinking, I guess what I was thinking was much more simple in a way, but kind of what I was thinking was maybe, let's say a guy who is a Viking warrior. He's just a standard Viking. Maybe he's connected to the Templars somehow. Because, historically from what I know, the Vikings were in many ways pretty ruthless. But then, he can't live with like those, he can't live by that code anymore, and then he like gets his own ship and, starts, fighting alongside the assassin. He somehow meets up with them. That's kind of what I was thinking in a way. In a way, I guess a Viking version of Black Flag in a way, but nothing that is too direct a copy at the same time. Because I still personally love the Black Flag story to this date. Like this young, ruthless, selfish guy who, as he starts losing more and more, he becomes less and less selfish and starts caring for others and, starts fighting for the assassins. I was thinking maybe a somewhat similar approach to this story. I don't know about you.
I think that does sound really good, actually. When you think about it, the last few stories we've had have been a bit sort of fragmented in a way. Yeah. So they've had like an overarching plot line, but we've not really seen like a redemption, as you say. Edward, for example, is a good one because he started as just someone with such ambition and then went on to join the cause. So if we could see this implemented in the game in maybe a drive that isn't money, maybe a drive that's something else, like protecting your family or something, which is almost the Bayek plot. If we went down that road, and then we really could see like the transition from Templar to Assassin in a way that hasn't been done before.
I know, that's the thing. I would love to see. I actually did a discussion on that a few years back now, kind of like what I call this rogue in reverse thing, where it's not an assassin becoming a Templar, but a Templar becoming an assassin. But I don't know if you should if he should be let's say a direct Templar. I would kind of prefer it if it's someone who's kind of unaware of this whole secret conflict, and doesn't really know about the first civilization or the pieces of Eden until he time passes and he becomes more sucked into the conflict and stuff. So I definitely like the idea. I just don't know if you should do it this specifically in with a Viking story. But I'm up for the idea and everything, no doubt. But as you, I just wanted to comment on that. As you said before, fragmented stories. What did you mean with that?
So with that, let's go back to Origins, for example. We had Bayek and his family living peacefully. And then you had the Order of Ancients, which were the villains in the game, sort of like the Templars in the background.
Kind of like the ancient Templars.
Them guys, they were sort of looking for the first civilization vault, but it didn't really connect that much with Bayek's story, apart from the whole, obviously Kemu that sort of connected it. But
he
in
was
the end,
Magi and everything.
Bayek hunted them down for the people they were rather than their ambitions upon the land, if that makes sense. I mean, they did have 10 like terrible things they wanted to bring in, but in the end it wasn't like the Templars where they all had like a role. So look at AC1 for example. You had like war bringers, you had people who could starve the people, like they were all contributing towards this one ideology. But in Origins, for example, it was like fragmented, like they were all terrible people controlling cities, but they didn't have like an end goal as such. So I'd like to see that return.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. That kind of like they had like all these different names, the hippo and the heron and the whatever they were called.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean. They didn't really have one specific goal each. And also I just replayed that. I'm thinking also just, you know, AC2 with all the conspirators and everything. Like the Pazzi family are controlling Florence, and these guys are controlling Venice and whatnot. Yeah, I know what you mean, in terms of fragmented. I was just, when you said that, I thought, I have talked about this before, I don't know if you feel the same way. Another thing that I feel like, where the origin story was kind of fragmented, was that you couldn't really get that invested into it. I don't know if I was the only one. And that's kind of due to the fact that, you know, like, it wasn't in sequences anymore, but it was more like these quests. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, actually. There were a lot of quests as well.
Yeah.
And when you include all the side content and everything, it could be, I don't know, like a week before you play another main mission again. Because, say you run from one side of the map to the other, you're constantly finding something to do, right?
That's the thing, because, you know, I'm that type of gamer, you know, I'm usually like to just power through the story in a way. So the fact that, you know, I was kind of forced to play these side quests because I had to go from like level 30 to 32, you know, it kind of, you know, forced me to do these side quests even though I actually didn't really want to do them. And since I sometimes really couldn't tell the difference between a side quest and a main quest, it just did that, you know, I kind of fell off the train that was like, you know, me feeling like connected with the story. And, you know, that way, yeah, I just kind of fell off, and, you know, and therefore I just don't think the origin story was that great in a way. That's just my opinion. So, you know, I'm thinking, like, no matter what they do with the next game, regardless if it's going to be Vikings or not, they definitely want to, like, make the story that, like, we haven't, like, last time I think we saw that was, like, 4 or 5 years ago now. You know, the kind of story that, you know, you can just power through in a way and, you know, get invested in and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we also have to get a bit more assassin elements in this one. So we've gone down the road of proto-assassins now.
Absolutely, and I'm definitely thinking, just by setting it, like, you know, around, you know, 800, 900 after Christ, you could definitely, you know, get that feel to it, since the Brotherhood has been around for quite a while. Compared to Odyssey, where it doesn't even exist yet, and, you know, in Origins, where, you know, it gets formed, you know, as the story progresses and stuff. So,
yeah, and one thing relating to that, have you considered the Norse mythology being used for the first civilization?
That's
so
actually,
let's think about it. Like Thor and all these like overarching figures.
That's actually my next question. So let's just hop to that now. You know, I wanted to ask you, like, since Assassin's Creed, you know, heavily relies on like various myths and legends, like, how would Norse mythology be implemented into the game? You know, I'm gonna say it straight here that I don't know like, I'm not an expert on Norse mythology, but, you know, I do know some of the basics and stuff. But I definitely would love to see it implemented in one way or another, since, you know, in Assassin's Creed, like, myths and legends means history that has been forgotten. You know, it could definitely work with, like, all the stuff like Yggdrasil, you know, the Tree of the Worlds, and as you said, Thor and some of those gods. And his almighty weapon and stuff. That could, you know, definitely be implemented in one way or another if it's like a side mission or whatnot. Do you have anything specific in mind, though?
Well, in Odyssey they had this. It was like a center where you would go to upgrade your weapon. So you had the Spear of Leonidas, and
Absolutely,
you would
yeah.
like collect things in the world, and that would like upgrade it. So that was say that was like a first civilization temple on an island. Well, this could do a similar thing where a first civ vault is underneath the ground, and that could be like the source of the power of the area. So say the first civilization vault had like weaponry and things that had been stolen, then you had to like get them back and put them away to hide them from enemies. I think that would be cool, and that could also conjure up some ideas like water creatures, and you know that the Vikings believed in these terrible demonic things that would come for you in the night. I mean, we've seen like giants in Odyssey, we've seen Anubis and the gods in Origins. I feel like if they did this, they would bring in like giant water serpents and other Norse enemies, which would be very cool.
I know what you mean. And actually, now that you said it, from what I know, like in Odyssey, you know, where you would fight like Medusa and you know all these other ancient creatures, mythical creatures, like that was like legit. Like that happened in real life. That was not an illusion or an animus glitch or anything. Like that happened, thanks to the apple or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of in a way I would say a bit too freaky, even for Assassin's Creed. But you know, I still know what you mean, and you know, just considering that, like in Origins, like the Trial of the Gods were, you know, animus glitches and stuff. But like, no matter if it were in this case was supposed to be animus glitches or like it happened in real life, you know, I definitely know what you mean. You could definitely take all these mythical things and kind of implement them in one way or another. If not, like, make it like a dream sequence where you fight off these, as you said, all these creatures and stuff. So, you know, you could definitely implement it in one way or another. Absolutely. But as you said, in terms of weapons, you know, that could also work. Like at some point you unlock like an ancient weapon with like the power of the Norse gods, like with the powers of Odin or stuff. That could also be pretty cool. Kind of like we've seen, you know, with the first civilization in various games.
Yeah, I've got to say, I actually really enjoyed using the first civilization weapon in Odyssey. I know you've not played it, but you could sort of upgrade the spear throughout the entire game, so it would just get better. And it was like a really interesting tool to have. And when you think about Unity, you had the Sword of Eden. That was a cracking weapon, really.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you could slay people with the power.
Yeah, you couldn't use the laser thing or whatever it was, but like it was super sharp and it was like the strongest sword in the game and such.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, there could be potentially hundreds more pieces of Eden that we've never even heard of. And maybe this could be one of the ways they could introduce them, or they could even look at ones that have been mentioned in like the AC2 glyphs, for example, and bring them to the game. That'd be so cool, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Like all these like ancient pieces of Eden and kind of maybe as you know Assassin's Creed usually does, kind of tie like these ancient first civilization artifacts into and kind of make them the explanation for like a key story of Norse mythology or something, as you know they kind of tend to do, and then you could find that weapon or something. That could be pretty cool actually.
Yeah, that'd be perfect actually. That'd be really interesting to see something like that.
Absolutely. And you know, as I said, I'm not the biggest expert on Norse mythology, so I mean, stop me if I'm saying anything too crazy here or anything. But you know, it could definitely work and everything. I mean, from you know, as I said, like kind of implement the Yggdrasil, you know, the tree of the worlds, and kind of the different realms, you know, that are that the Vikings believed in. I don't know how exactly it would be implemented into the game, but it could work. I mean, I want to say it could be cool with some like interdimensional stuff, kind of like we had with the afterlives in Origins, which I personally really enjoyed. That was pretty cool. But then again, like if I'm not mistaken, that whole like those afterlives was just an illusion, wasn't it?
Yeah, the whole thing was down to the pieces of Eden, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then again, you could still enter them even after beating like the final boss. But yeah, it was an illusion. Everything, like from those birds with faces to the afterlives to everything. Like the whole thing was an illusion, created by the apple.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely do that with Valhalla, couldn't they?
Yeah, Valhalla and Asgard and all those other things. I can't name all of them off the top of my head. But there's also now that I just read about it, yeah, like Nidavellir, the home of the dwarves, and all those like other things, and they could definitely implement that in one way or another, and then again maybe like make it this kind of illusion thing or a dream sequence if like you don't want to get too deep into like explanations and stuff on how it happened. But you know, definitely I would love to see it implemented in one way or another in Norse mythology, no matter what it would be.
Yeah, I've got to say that this would probably be DLC content going off Ubisoft's track record recently. I mean, if we look at Curse of the Pharaohs DLC, that was where we got them really interested in...
Yeah, with the afterlives and stuff.
Yeah, the afterlife. And then when you look at Odyssey as well, we've just had the Fate of Atlantis. That again was DLC content where you could enter Atlantis.
Yeah, I saw about that. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, if you were to implement it kind of, like the different realms and some interdimensional stuff, definitely make it like, maybe even an alternate reality DLC, which, you know, I have talked about before, which I would love to see again, kind of like we had with, was it Tyranny of King Washington, like, way back. You know, kind of it's not really canon, but the whole thing is an illusion or something. And then if you wanted to have some Norse mythology elements in the main game, kind of, you know, give it a first civilization twist, and then you can find like an ancient, the Sword of Thor or whatnot, which has lightning powers. Not that it existed or anything, but, you know, just theoretically speaking.
Do you watch Game of Thrones, Gustav?
I actually don't. I haven't yet.
One thing that particularly interested me in Game of Thrones was the warg ability, which was where characters could like see and control other creatures. So Bran in Game of Thrones, he can like control like the giants, he can control the dragons, so he can like somehow use his mind to control these things. And I wondered if they could bring that somehow into Assassin's Creed. So I mean, we're not too far away, because when you're using the eagle ability, like the character can see through the eagle, but that's never really explained. So I wondered if they'd go like the full warg ability like approach in this one, like maybe because it was such a deeply spiritual people, the Vikings, they could maybe go down like the pet eagle being connected on like a somehow the same level where you can do more than just see through the eagle's eyes, you can control it completely.
Yeah, I definitely know where you're going at. So you're saying you would like to see like kind of more a connection between like humans and animals, if it was?
Yeah, but it would be more to do with like a sixth sense, almost like a first civilization power, because it's been hinted at in like all sorts of media for Assassin's Creed. I mean, in the Reflections comics, Connor's daughter actually sees through the eyes of an eagle, and that's never explained, because obviously everyone's got the potential of a first civilization DNA, but it's never explained how you're seeing this. And Origins, you've got Senu, and Odyssey, you've got the other eagle, so you are seeing through their eyes. I wonder if this time they could go a step further and create a bit of a link. Maybe it's some kind of old forgotten power that humans used to have because of the DNA.
Yeah, maybe, you know, you're saying that we would like discover a part of the first civilization we've never really explored before?
Yeah, I think something along the lines of unlocking your greater potential. So you somehow find a way to release it.
You're saying kind of put more focus on spirit animals, I guess it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a Viking game would be the right one to do it with, really, for that.
That sounds sick, actually. I'm not gonna lie. So are you saying you would rather like just? I was just thinking, looking ahead, would you rather just have a pet eagle as eagle vision instead of like, you know, the traditional eagle vision?
Yeah, I think it is what's needed, to be honest, just because when you think about how big the map was in Origins and Odyssey, it was needed, really.
Oh
So
yeah,
you could
absolutely.
scout out the land and see everything. I couldn't imagine playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey without the Eagle, just because it's so big, and I feel like that's here to stay. And like in Origins, we did have the Eagle vision, like literal sense, but it was, did they call it Animus Pulse or something?
Yeah, or yeah, you could use that to kind of like, yeah, like scout the area for treasures and stuff, and then you could use the eagle to scan the area for enemies and such.
Yeah, I've got to say I didn't find the Animus Pulse very useful, to be honest. I find it like useless now because we have got the eagle where you can look up and see down, but it's not quite like the eagle vision we had with like Altair Ezio, with the color and everything, where it would highlight things. It just sort of like did it as an animus simulation.
So that's just I can't really think of anything else specific to discuss. Do you have any questions for me, maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you this. With a warrior assassin, for example,
Yeah.
would you want them to have like a terrible backstory, like tragic loss, because we've seen that a lot, or would you like them to actually have like a happy life for a change?
Um, that's a tricky one, actually. Um, I'm gonna say having a tragic backstory is probably like is a big cliche, like in every sort of storytelling. Um, so let's just theoretically speaking say that like this assassin warrior, he has a happy life, he has a family and everything, and he doesn't really have a tragic past. Um, I'm just kind of struggling to see what would his motivation be in a way. Like, would it just be like he has a giant heart and just wants to, like, make life greater for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, that's an
Yeah.
interesting point because I'm a big fan of the Vikings TV show, and Ragnar, for example, had a passion for looking after his own people and was actually a farmer at heart. That's what he was, and he wanted to provide for his family and everyone around him. So that's why he became like the warrior who would go off on expeditions. He did have a bit of like greed and everything about him. He wanted the loot and everything, but
Yeah.
the main core of it was to protect his family and keep them safe.
Yeah, I guess now that I'm just thinking of it, you could kind of maybe blur the lines between the two, actually. Maybe, let's say, a warrior, he's a Viking warrior, for example, and he lives in, like, a village and has let's say he has just a wife and two daughters, maybe. And he has a happy life now, and he has kind of always had that, but maybe there was once, like, a battle where, like, he lost like one of his best friends, like who he had been fighting along like ever since he started fighting, but he didn't make it out alive, and now he's kind of trying to maybe live the life he never could in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like if they went down that road, they could open up all sorts of different avenues that they've never pursued before, really. Because we have a lot of bloodshed in the AC games, as in relating to the characters. So we have a lot of dads, we have a lot of kids who've been killed, unfortunately, and
Yeah,
this kind of thing, like
Bayek,
family related.
Bayek lost
But
his
if,
son, Ezio lost his brothers and father,
yeah,
and Edward lost his wife, even though he didn't find out until like 5-6 years after it happened, and Connor lost his mother, and pretty much I think in every AC game someone close to the character has died, and that's kind of
yeah.
their motivation. And I think if you took that away completely, that would just hmm, that would take something away from the main character.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think in this new chapter for Assassin's Creed, they're really going to have to start thinking outside the box because
Absolutely.
we've had a lot of big games now with AC. We've had a lot of similar storylines, so maybe it is time to go down a different direction, like maybe have a blind character, for example.
Oh, like that, and then he uses the eagles to see, for example.
Yeah, now imagine that. That'd be
Oh.
something very different, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, it would. I would definitely say, like, regardless, as I said, regardless of if the next game is Vikings or not, they definitely want to, you know, if Assassin's Creed needs to go forward from here, you know, they definitely need to try and, you know, take some of the good elements back. Like, some of the elements that made the old games what they are, you know, they need to bring those back. And I definitely, you know, feel that myself. And then, you know, mix it with some of the good elements from these, like, this new era of Assassin's Creed. If you mix those, you can maybe have the perfect Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the perfect Assassin's Creed game, I'm not sure if it's been created yet. I mean, I love every game in each way, but they're all flawed in different ways as well.
Absolutely.
So maybe the best Assassin's Creed game isn't out yet.
Maybe not. I mean, my personal favorite to this date is still Black Flag. And, you know, that's kind of a way of, like, personal memories, and then, you know, the gameplay, the open world, and then also the story. I think Black Flag is definitely my favorite story, and also just because, you know, I love Edward's character so much. You know, because of, like, the change he undergoes and stuff.
Yeah, it is definitely a fantastic game, isn't it? It really is.
Absolutely.
And even when I went to Rome recently, I mean, I could see, like, the places where everything had happened in the game, and, you know, in Brotherhood you had Ezio's, like, team who were everywhere. It's just, like, I felt like I was there. That's how good the creation was.
Absolutely, I know it, definitely. And that's the thing, like, you know, I can't go to, like, I also went to Florence a few years back. You know, you can't go to those places without, oh, I climbed up that building and I jumped off there and that's where I killed that guy and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I guess to wrap this up, I would say, I guess we should say that, like, you know, there are definitely a lot of opportunities for this Viking game, both in terms of gameplay and story, and implementing, you know, Norse mythology into it. And, you know, Ubisoft need to experiment, I guess you could call it, if that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I feel like it's time for that kind of thing. So we've been playing safe for a while. Maybe it is time to go down a different sort of path for the franchise, especially with the possibility of Norse mythology. We could definitely create, like, a really interesting and memorable Viking game.
Absolutely. I'm just also saying, in terms of story, I may have said this a bit earlier, but I feel like, even if that's an unpopular opinion, I feel, as I also said, if I need to get invested into the story, I want the return of, like, I don't want this quest system. I want, like, the old-fashioned, like, memory sequences back. Because, you know, that systematizes it in a way, and you can kind of keep track of it, and...
Yeah, it would be nice to see that sort of return, and even the return of something like the database. I mean, they're going with the whole...
Yeah.
What is it? Like, the, you know, the history tour they're doing.
The history tour.
Which is a very cool idea, but I would still like the traditional database, you know, written by Sean Hastings.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I do wonder about the franchise. How RPG is it going to go? Like, they've gone down this road. Are they going to fully commit to it and become, like, a full RPG, or are they going to rein it back and bring back social stealth and this kind of thing? Or
absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because, like, just quickly speaking of RPG games, I know you haven't played it, but, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2, which has been out for some time now, and it's definitely one of my favorite games. Some people call that an RPG game, yet, you know, it is, like, kind of how Assassin's Creed used to be, very systematized. You know, there's a main story where, you know, you start a mission, and then you can't go back into the open world before that's done. And, you know, there are side missions, and then there's some collectibles, and different stuff to do. You know, very much like how Assassin's Creed used to be. And then some people say, you know, just in terms of the collectibles, like, you know, they don't really see a point in them. But, I mean, you know, they add variation to the gameplay, and, you know, they're an interesting way of, like, exploring the world. Because then maybe you see a little corner you wouldn't see otherwise. And also, as you said, like, in terms of, let's say, an ancient Norse scroll or something from, like, Odin or something, you know, that would be, like, an awesome collectible to have.